Hey, welcome to First Time Feast. I'm your host, Bobby Perko. Today we got one of my all-time favorites. We are going to be making a hot and sour soup. So with hot and sour soup, they have it all over town at all kinds of different Chinese restaurants, but it's really hard to find a good one. So today I'm going to show you to make the perfect hot and sour soup. Not too vinegary, not too hot. It's just going to be the right amount. Really easy process, and honestly you can do it in just one pot. Today we're going to be using two just for the ease of the cook, but honestly you can do this all at once and it's really simple. Let's get it. All right guys, so first thing that we're going to want to do, because it's going to take a little bit of time, we're going to want to get our mushrooms, we're going to want to get them rehydrating. So we're going to be using a unique thing here. You probably haven't seen this a lot, you probably haven't heard of it a lot, and in fact it's actually really hard to find. We're going to be using some organic dried earwood mushrooms. So with these wood ear mushrooms, they're found in the Pacific, in Central Asia and in the Pacific Islands. They grow in like a temperate climate. These are really unique in the fact that they look like an ear and they grow in dead wood. But in cooking, they don't really give off much flavor. But what's nice about them, they absorb a lot of the broth or the cooking fluids that you're using, and they absorb all of that flavor, and they don't go kind of soft and squishy. They have a really nice crunch or a really nice bite to them, so they're a great texture piece. For this soup, it's an absolute must. So for this, we're gonna get them rehydrated. We wanna put them in a pot of water here. Let them go for about 5 to 7 minutes, and let them absorb, and you'll see exactly what they look like before and after here. So we're gonna go ahead, we're gonna get our mushrooms measured out here. So the recipe for this calls for a 1/4 cup. So a 1/4 cup is just about a handful. I really like this mushroom, however, so I'm gonna kind of go a little bit more. I'm gonna grab another small handful and put that in there. So if you can see this, these are really, I'll kind of put some out and lay them on the board here for you. As you can see, they're shriveled, they're dry, they're hard. They don't look super appetizing right now, but here in a couple of minutes, you're gonna see they're gonna be pretty cool. So we're gonna take these, we're gonna pot them in here. And we're just gonna kind of give them just a little bit of a stir. Those are gonna take just a little bit of time, and they're gonna start to rehydrate. They're gonna absorb all of that water. They're gonna plump up, and they're gonna completely transform. So while that's rehydrating, we're gonna work on our vegetables here. So simple, so the soup doesn't have a lot of ingredients in it. So you're gonna have some bamboo shoots. So with the bamboo shoots, you can get them at Hy-Vee, you can get them at Baker's, you can get them at Walmart. They're really not too hard to find. When you get these bamboo shoots, you wanna get the ones that are really kind of thin. You can buy bamboo shoots in a whole stock, and you can cut them down yourself, or you can buy them in the long square rectangles. But honestly, just to make this soup really more appealing, get like a nice spoonful, this is gonna be what you're gonna want to use on this. So bamboo shoots, we're gonna do about 5 to 7 cloves of garlic. You're gonna need some ginger. And for the green onions, mostly it's gonna be for the aesthetic at the end, but I like to cook with the white part of the onion, so we're gonna get that going down there too. And we got some other unique ingredients with this. The other unique ingredient that we're gonna have our black, Chinese black vinegar. That's another one that's kind of hard to find, but luckily here in Omaha, we have the Asian market over on 72nd. They have a great selection of all of this stuff, so you can literally find everything you need over there, including the mushrooms. So first thing that we're gonna wanna do, we're gonna start preparing our garlic. So with our garlic, you've seen this before, literally just get them smushed. We're gonna wanna kind of go for like a smaller piece. The smaller the better. If you have pre-minced garlic, use that. It works really good. You theoretically can use garlic powder for this, but I wouldn't recommend it. So now that we got those, we're just gonna give them a nice little chop. Get those all chopped up here. And then we're gonna get this all set aside here for the next piece. All right. All right, so garlic is gonna be done. We're gonna set that aside. Now we're gonna wanna work on our ginger. So ginger, it has a unique flavor to it. It's kind of sweet. Kind of tangy. I personally don't like the flavor of ginger all that much, so we're only going to use a little bit of it. So for ginger, we're just going to give this a quick little peel. You can use an apple peeler or a potato peeler, or you can just use the side of your knife. There's a little piece on here that's kind of weird, so we're just going to cut that off, discard that, make this a little bit easier to work with. There we go. Cool. So now that that is all good to go, we're going to grate this ginger up. Use your cheese grater. If you have a garlic press, you can use a garlic press. But we just did about a tablespoon, so not a ton there. We're going to scrape this out the best we can. Get this on the cutting board and leave that next to our garlic. So now that that's good, we're going to set that aside. And then now we are going to work on our green onions. So green onions, again, really only going for about the whites on here. So we're going to cut that little bit off, discard that. So I'll go about halfway up before when the green onion starts to turn like thinner. If you work with green onions, you'll know it's about halfway. So we're going to stop about right there. So now that's really it as far as the vegetables go. We're going to set these aside. We're going to hold on to these for later on, because we're going to use those as a garnish. So let's transport this over to our ramekins real quick. So the garlic and the ginger can go on the same one. Those are going to literally get tossed in at the exact same time. But I am, however, going to transport these ones into another one here. Okay. All right, so if we want to flash on back, look over our mushrooms. As you can see, these things have completely transformed from what those dry little things. So these are pretty much done. So what we're going to do, we're going to strain them off, we're going to pull them out, and we're going to get them prepared with the rest of our veggies here. All right, guys, so now that we got our mushrooms out of the water and they're rehydrated, we're just gonna start cutting these things up. So they're still gonna be a little bit hot, so we'll spread some of them out and we'll start working with these guys here. So we're gonna set some of these aside. So for me, you don't wanna, these are really chewy and they're really crunchy, so you don't want like a big mouthful of these, but I really like them in the really thin strips. So you wanna cut these, it doesn't necessarily have to be perfect. You just wanna get them cut into little slivers here. You essentially just want to julienne these. So we're going to start working on these. Easiest way is if you find some that are somewhat like shaped, you can stack them on top of each other and you can make relatively quick work of them. All right. So yeah, they have definitely like a cool little crunch and a feel when you cut through these guys. I love them. If you had a food processor, you could toss several of these in there at the same time and get them done at the same time. You wouldn't want to pulse it. You would just want to pulse it. You wouldn't want to do anything too long, otherwise you'll have a slop on your hands, but this is going to make a really, really good soup, guys. All right, last little bunch, and we'll get these, get the rest of this thing rolling here. All right, cool. All right, so mushrooms are good. We got our bamboo shoots good. We got our garlic and our ginger, everything all set aside. Now we just got to get this thing rolling. So what we're going to do here first, guys, we're going to get our chicken. We're going to get our chicken going. So we're going to want to move this to the side. what we're going to do, we're just going to toss these back in the bowl for the time being. And we're going to start working on our chicken breast. Okay, so for these, really, really thin. We want really, really thin, almost like sashimi type slices on these. So go long ways, and we're going to want to cut this across the cross section here. So really, really thin slices. One trick that you can do for cutting meat, if you want to have really, really thin, perfect slices every time, one, you're going to want a really, really sharp knife, but two, if you throw your meat in the freezer for probably 10, 15, 20 minutes, it's going to firm up a lot, and you can get really, really crisp, really, really clean cuts every single time. So we're just going to knock out all of these. Depending on how many people you're cooking for is really going to be how many chicken breasts or chicken thighs that you're going to use here. So these are going to be your boneless chicken thighs. If you can save a little bit of money and get yourself some bone-in chicken thighs, it just gives you a little bit of an extra step. You just got to go through and take the bone out of there. Not very difficult to do, but for this, I was on the way here. I stopped and I picked up some already boned chicken thighs. Saves a little bit of time. But we're almost done. We just got one more to do after this, and we'll be able to get these things cooking down. So, all right, almost good. All right. So now that our meat is prepared, we are going to get this thing go on the final step here. All right, so what you're going to want to do, you're going to want to get your heat onto a medium-low heat. We're going to get some olive oil into the pan, and we're going to get this meat cooking down here. So take your olive oil. You can use canola, you can use avocado oil, you can really use coconut oil. Any type of oil that you can use is perfectly fine. I'm just going to be using some olive oil here. So we're going to get this pan completely coated. Kill that bottle off. And then we're going to toss in our chicken. Chicken is in. One thing that we're going to want to look for here, so you can use your garlic powder, you can use onion powder, you can use white pepper, really whatever you have. This recipe calls for a white pepper, so we're going to season this with some white pepper. Give it a nice little coat. And then the one thing that I really like to use Slap Yo Mama. This is also the white pepper blend. So with this, it has your salt, it has your pepper, it has your white pepper, it has your paprika. It really has a whole ambiance of flavors in it. So if you've watched my videos and my YouTube videos on my channel, you'll know I use Slap Your Mama in everything. This dish is no exception. So we're gonna hit it with some Slap Yo Mama. Typically, I don't ever measure my food, but if you're following along at home and you wanna get a good recipe for this, typically use anywhere between 1 and 2 teaspoons. You can use as much as you like, as little as you like, but 1 to 2 teaspoons is going to be a good measure of this dish here. So what we're going to do, we're going to get our chicken cooking here, and get our chicken cooking here. We're going to go for a brown. So we're going to get this moving around here in the pot. Once this gets about halfway through, once it starts turning, getting a little golden brown, we're going to start adding in our garlic, we're going to add in our ginger, we're going to add in our green onions. This is just gonna create a nice base for this soup. All right, guys, as we can see, our chicken is getting really close to getting done. So what we're gonna do now, because it's getting so close, we're gonna start adding in the rest of our veggies. So what we're gonna use, remember that garlic and ginger from earlier, we're gonna toss all of that in there. So this is a really aromatic food. It's gonna produce a lot of different senses and tastes for this. It's really gonna help be the foundation of this. And while that's in there, we're gonna hit it with about a tablespoon of red pepper flakes. We're gonna hit it with a little bit more of our white pepper from earlier. So this is about a teaspoon. The recipe calls for some sriracha. I didn't have any sriracha, so I went with something a little bit different. We went with a Korean gochujang. This is kind of like a sriracha, it's kind of a mimic, but it's gonna get the same point across. It's gonna be kind of hot, it's gonna be kind of like that smooth, rich, that heat that you're looking for. So we're gonna hit this with just a little bit of the gochujang. So about one to 2 tablespoons. Doesn't need to be over the top, but that's gonna be a good amount there. And then what we're gonna do now too, we're gonna add in our white part of the green onion. Okay, so that's all added up. Okay, so we're just gonna start incorporating this into the dish, start stirring it around, let that start breaking down and sauteing with the rest of the meat. It's gonna add some nice texture, it's gonna add some nice crunch, add some flavor. It's gonna really, really be nice. Oh man, so what you could do right now, like if you had just this components right here, if you had yourself some water chestnuts, you could take some water chestnuts to this, add this in here, and then you would have yourself some really, really killer lettuce wraps. You'd probably want to add a little bit of brown sugar. You'd want to add like some sort of like a hoisin sauce to it, but this would be a great foundation if you were making some sort of lettuce wraps. So kind of a focal point or a turning point from where you can really transition this dish into other things. So this is pretty much pretty much good. If you want to go for more of a brown on your chicken, you can. Another thing that you could do too, if you had a Teflon pan or a Teflon bowl, you could add a bunch of flour to this and it would give it a really nice coating and it would thicken up your sauce. Because we're cooking in this type of a pot, we're not going to do that because I don't want to make the cleaning crew here hate me. So, because it will stick to the bottom of that pan like a fond and you will never get it off. So we're going to skip that step for this. But if you do have a Teflon skillet or a Teflon pot at the house, add about like 2 tablespoons of flour to that, give it a nice cook, and it's really gonna help the rest of the process. But I do have a get out of jail free card for that. So we're gonna add some cornstarch and water slurry to this later on, and it's gonna achieve that same thickening step. So it'll end up being okay. So now that that's going, we're gonna take our bamboo shoots from earlier. This is about a full cup. We're gonna add our full cup of bamboo shoots. You could really put these in at any time, but I like to get them in a little bit early because that way they can kind of cook with the rest of this and it's going to kind of break them down a little bit more. So we're going to start stirring those around and incorporating that into this. Oh yeah. And then now we're going to go in with our brown sugar. So we have 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. And then we're gonna hit it with our white slap yo mama. Okay. This is smelling really, really good, you guys. This is gonna be such a yummy soup. Okay, that's ready to roll. So now we're gonna go for our liquids. What we have here, we have 3 cups of water. Okay, and you're actually gonna see me measure something for the first time because this actually has to be done right. So we're gonna go with this Chinese black vinegar. The Chinese black vinegar, you really only need about a 1/2 cup of this. Okay, so that's perfect. We're gonna add in our black vinegar. And then now we're gonna go to a soy sauce. So soy sauce, love it, love it, love it. If you can, find yourself a low sodium soy sauce. This one is full sodium and it's really, really salty. As you can see this whole time, I really haven't seasoned anything with salt. This is gonna be really, really high on salt, so you don't need to use this. So we're gonna go ahead, add in our sodium. We're gonna add in our soy sauce. For this, we are gonna go for a full cup. So we're adding our soy sauce. Okay, and then our last little bit here, we're gonna add in our rice vinegar. So this rice vinegar, opposed to the black vinegar, has a real bite to it. This soup, you're walking a fine line on the vinegar scale, but the ones that we put in there with the soy sauce, it's really kind of mellow so far. This is gonna add a little bit of a bite. So I'm just gonna pour in just about probably 3 tablespoons. That's gonna be more than enough. And then the last step on this here, we're gonna add in our beef broth. We wanna do a whole quart of beef broth. So you can use a chicken broth, you can use a seafood broth, you can use whatever. But this beef broth gives it a nice warmth and kind of like an unctuous flavor. Really, really good. It can make it a little bit bitter, so if you prefer chicken, use chicken. That's completely fine, but I personally prefer the beef broth. And so we can't forget about our wood ear mushrooms from earlier. This is the star of the dish. We're gonna add these guys in here. Yeah, can't forget those. Those are all perfect. All right, let's give this thing a stir. Bring this thing up to heat. Oh yeah, that's looking really, really nice, guys. I'll let that boil for a second here. All right, so we're gonna finish this off with our green onion garnish. So for these, we wanna go really, really thin. Okay, set those aside. And then we're gonna wanna go with our tofu. So tofu, another one that's kind of optional. You don't have to use tofu. Some people hate tofu. I wasn't really a huge fan growing up, but it's one of those things that's kind of grown on me. So I really like a thin cubed tofu for this. This gives it a really nice little added texture. Honestly, you kind of, even though you might not like it, it's really nice. So got the tofu set aside. Finish this thing off here. And then while this is coming up to heat, before it comes to a boil, we know before it comes to a boil, we want to do the last little signature ambiance, or last little touch to this soup. We want to add a egg ribbon. So egg ribbons are kind of unique, but if you are cooking like a egg drop soup, this is going to be the trick to how to get your egg drop soup. Cornstarch. So we're going to need just a little bit of cornstarch. So we're going to go with a half of a teaspoon of cornstarch. We're going to go with 2 eggs. And because I don't have any water, what we're going to do, we're going to cheat a little bit and steal some broth. We're going to whisk this together. All right. So before this thing comes to a complete boil, we're going to take in our egg, and we're going to add some egg ribbons. So literally just take your mixture and just kind of drizzle it around throughout the soup. And then what that's going to do, that's going to create those beautiful, silky texture to that soup. So there's so many different levels of this soup. So let's just go ahead and pour that in there. If you do this too soon, when your water or your soup is boiling, it's going to completely disrupt that, and you're going to get essentially scrambled eggs. You don't want scrambled eggs. You want those nice, silky, wonderful ribbons. So that's pretty much ready to go, guys. So now all we got to do is plate it up and enjoy. All right, guys, that's it for you. That's some hot and sour soup. It easily can be done at home. Honestly, you do it in a single pot at the house, and you only really take you probably 25-30 minutes to knock out the whole thing. So really, really easy recipe. Thanks for following me today. For more of my content, if you want to check me out at First Time Feast on YouTube, that's the episode. Thanks, guys. Let's get it.